First of all, as you know, my name is Usman, registered migration agent, and with me we have Hira. So Hira is our senior student counselor, and she helps with the admissions, with course changes, and those all education services basically. So first, let's start with the basics, like regarding IT pathway. Obviously, like this might be boring for some people who have already done the research, but there's some I can see who are attending our webinar for the first time. So I just want to make sure that we cover the basics as well. Okay, so the first thing is obviously know that with IT, whether you've studied overseas or onshore, you have to get assessment done through ACS. So that's like the first thing. Now the main occupation we go for are basically three major groups, which is networking, business analytics, and the software engineering, basically programming group, basically three main groups. Now the main agenda we have discussed is like the five things. We will discuss about the qualification, we'll discuss about the professional year, we'll discuss about the experience requirement and the PR pathway for IT graduates. This is the main chunk of the whole whole presentation, in which we'll discuss all the states you should consider or not consider, right? So that's one of the things. And at the end, we'll discuss the obviously towards the middle, we'll discuss the study option, like what can you study and which study, right? So we'll discuss that. Now, first of all, for IT, the qualification, the basic requirement is the content has to be 65% IT or above. Okay. Now, this could be for offshore or onshore degrees, so doesn't really matter. Just to give an example, if you've done a BTech in electronics and communications back in back in your home country, even that can work. If it's electrical engineering, even then it can work, but we have to see if electrical engineering components it does have at least 65% IT components, and some degrees these days do have that much component, okay, for IT component basically. Now, your specialization should be in IT, and it should be in a particular field. Let's say social, for example, software engineering, or it should be from programming side or networking side. So we have to make sure that also there. Now, generally, most of the people I think attending today are based in Australia. So for them, just a simple explanation, to get a skill assessment, you have to have done a Australian IT qualification, okay? And with that, you have to couple it with either professional year or experience or both. Okay, so if you have done professional year, you can get, because professional year is generic. So whether you've done analytics or whether you've done software engineering or networking, you will still get the assessment because professional year is generic. The work experience has to be unique. So if you're working as a software engineer, obviously you're not working as a network engineer. So you have to figure out like what's your specialization, what's your actually major in your degree. So for example, if you've done a degree which is called Master of Information Technology in computer networking and security. Now in that field, obviously you can do networking, security, support occupations, but then again, it all depends on your work. What kind of work are you doing? Okay, so based on that, you figure out. Now, if you're doing professional year or work experience, based on that, you get positive skill assessment and you get 5 points on top of that. Now, this is a simple way of understanding how the points work. If you've done just a professional year, you'll get 5 points and a positive assessment. If you've done experience, you get positive assessment and 5 points for your EY in terms of experience. But if you've done experience and professional year at the same time, you get 10 points. Now, for offshore, again, IT major degree has to be there, and you'll have to generally have 2 years of qualification so that you can get a skill assessment positively assessed. So for example, if you've done a BCA, MCA, or you've done a Bachelor of IT, then you have to have followed it up with 2 years of experience in IT field. If you've done a job in IT field for 2 years, you can get a skill assessment. Okay. Now, if you've done an IT minor, then your experience will go up. So for example, if you've done a IT degree in bachelor's overseas, whether it's Pakistan, India, Philippines, Bangladesh, doesn't matter. If you did an IT degree, you need to have 2 years experience after that. If you have not done an IT degree, then the experience goes up. So if you've done, let's say something, just an example, if you've done a chemical engineering degree, then you need to have 6 years of experience to get an assessment done and an RPL report made. So there's a couple of combinations we can go for, but then again, if your qualification is lacking an IT component, you have to make up for it with your experience. So it comes down to that. Now, just to give you an explanation, offshore experience, because there's a lot of confusion regarding offshore experience. So I just want to cover that up quickly. So basically, the general rule of thumb is basically whatever experience you need to get a skill assessment, that will not help you to get the points if you're offshore. So if you, for example, if you did an Australian degree, for example, you've done an MIT degree, Master of Information Technology, and you've done 1 year experience after that, that will give you 5 points. But if you've done an overseas degree and you're using 2 years experience to get assessment, those 2 years will not give you the points. So there's a difference between offshore and onshore degree. So we have to be very careful when we decide for our clients, like whether we're using onshore degree to get assessment or the offshore, because a lot of people, they did IT degree back home, and then in Australia they did MBA or engineering management, or one of those qualifications which is very generic, or let's say project management. So we have to figure out how much experience is going to be deducted. Okay, so onshore nothing deducted, offshore is deducted. I have further examples as well, so you will understand even better. So if you look at this degree, 2011 to 2014, this person did a 3-year bachelor degree. Now the experience from 2014, 2015 up to 2016, the 2 years by experience will be used to get the assessment, because this is the first 2 years. This will be used to give this person a skill assessment. So this cannot be used for the points. So the experience after this for 2 years will give him the assessment. So for example, if a person has 5 years experience and 2 years get deducted to get a skill assessment, the rest 3 years will give them 5 points. Okay, so this is the easy way to understand. But if the person has 4 years of experience, so they cannot claim 5 points for 3 years, because the first 2 will be deducted. So that's something you have to understand. Now, when you talk about experience, we also have to talk about the documentation. So obviously we need qualification documentation in terms of your degree, your completion letter, your transcript, those kind of documents, along with your experience letter, which is like the most important document, because experience letter, if you do it wrong or if you put it the wrong way, it becomes really tough, and the duties are not matching your qualification, it will just not help you at all. Now, in terms of the payment evidence, there are 4 main types. We need only 2. You can go with pay slips, bank statement, you could go for tax, you can go for superannuation, but you need only 2 of them, and that should suffice. But obviously, the more you give, the proper you get, the proper way you give it, the easier it becomes for you to get the assessment. Okay, now experience letter, obviously this is something you have to understand, like it has to be closely related to your nominated occupation. So if you are applying as an, so basically you have to know the little nuances. For example, if you're a computer network system engineer or you are a system analyst, like there are similarities, but there are differences as well. So you have to make your letter in such a way that you can actually get the assessment, because some people, they like, if for example, if you're just focusing too much on the quality assurance, let's say you're a software engineer and you're totally working on QA, like you're actually a tester, you do the debugging and stuff like that. Now, if you're doing all of that and you're focusing too much on that, that means it will seem like you're just a software tester. You're not a software engineer, you're a software tester, which is a junior level occupation, level 2, level 3, basically. I think level 3. So based on that, so obviously we have to align it based on your title, your qualification, basically we align the occupation we are going for, the qualification and the experience together. Okay, now apart from that, these are few examples just to make sure you understand like the differences between the assessment onshore, offshore. So if you go with this assessment, for example, if you know this person got the degree done, let's say CSU degree was done in January 2019. Okay, and this person started working as a support engineer from January 19 itself. Okay, so if you notice that, you must see the date. This is just it says 18th of January 2019 is considered to equate to work at an appropriate level, meaning this is a date, it's called a deemed date. Now, deemed date, so basically what it means in simple language is this is the date you can actually use to get the points. Okay, so this person completed their MIT degree from CSU on January 2019, as mentioned above, and because they started working for 1 year after that, they got the whole 1 year points. Okay, and the deemed date is on 18th of January, because that's also the date of the completion of the qualification. So it goes back to my original point that if you've done an Australian qualification, the moment you complete it, all experience can be counted. So this is what it shows. Second example, now this is for someone who is using their overseas degree. Okay, so they have their Master of Business Information Technology in RM, but they're using their degree from BTech in Computer Science from Linnaeus University. Okay, now if you notice, they completed a degree, overseas degree in 2013, but their deemed date is 2016. The difference is basically they deducted the first 2 years. So January 2014 they started working. January 2015 to January 2016 they completed 2 years. Now once they complete 2 years, those 2 years did not give them points. So that's why the deemed date starts from January 2016, even though they graduated in September of 2013 or end of 2013. So this is something you have to be very careful about, because once your experience is cut, you get reduced points, and we have to plan for these kind of things, because you can't just apply and let the ACS just decide that whatever they want to give you. You have to figure out what can you get and how you should put it out there, right? So we have to do a little bit of planning on this. Okay. Now, this is just now before we move to the actual content in which we talk about all the states and what the requirements are and what the trends are. I just want my colleague Ms. Hira to just explain you about the basically the options for education, basically. Just 1 second. I think there's some technical problem she's having. So we'll come back to this topic a little later. So let me just start with the best pathway for the education. Okay. So basically, she will come. I think there's some technical problem with her, so she'll be joining in the next 2-3 minutes. But till then, we'll just go to the main part, which is basically on what state to consider and what to avoid. Okay. So there are a couple of states which are the best for IT. One of them is NSW, then Victoria, then South Australia, then Queensland, and then Western Australia. I'm not going to talk about Canberra, Northern Territory, and Tasmania for a couple of reasons. Number one, Canberra has been extremely tough for the last 1.5 years for most applicants, especially IT applicants. So the people who are planning 190, they had to compromise on the 491. The one who are applying for 491, they had to wait for pretty much 6 months, 8 months to get the invite. Invites are coming. That's not a problem. The problem is Canberra has been very tough. So when it becomes so tough, because people think it's a smaller state, you're moving from Sydney to Canberra, you're moving from Melbourne to Canberra, so you're doing them a favor. Well, you're not. And frankly speaking, if the requirements are not worth it, then there's no point of talking about Canberra. So that's why it's very tough right now, especially they're sharing a lot of seats with the offshore applicants. So the Canberra's focus is divided as well. Now, if you go to Tasmania keep changing their rules. So again, not the ideal field in that sense. And secondly, another reason which is very important, that there's one of the few states in which the jobs are not plenty. So even if you go there, you will struggle. Not just that, and even if, especially in IT field, like there's hardly any IT companies over there. There's hardly any relevant jobs available over there. So you will be betting against the odds. So not worth the effort. Okay. Now there's Northern Territory, but Northern Territory has less than 2,000 seats available. So why should we go to a state which barely has enough seats for their own graduates? So why should we move from Sydney or Melbourne or any other state? So that's why we keep our focus to the main 6 states, and that should suffice, and that should give you a very simple way of getting a PR, because one of them should meet your criteria. Because if you're not getting, even if one of these states are not worth it for you, we'll discuss, then it means that there's something wrong. Then it means then you have to change your plan completely. Then you have to get out of IT and do something different. Because if none of these make sense to you, then we have to revamp the whole thing, right? So let's talk about NSW first. So for NSW 190 is basically what they've done is they've made a combination of points and experience. So you have to have the right points and experience together. So for example, if you are an ICT project manager, you just have to have 95 points and 0 experience to get the PR. But if you're a network engineer, then you have to get much higher. Okay, so that's the combination. So we'll discuss that in the next slide, but just moving to 491 first. 491 has 3 pathways. The regional NSW based direct pathway means that you have been working in regional NSW for the past 1 year, and you basically want to apply directly through that pathway, meaning you actually lived in regional NSW already for the past 1 year, and you want to apply directly based on that experience. So that is one pathway to follow, and you have to have a salary of $53,900 per annum. Okay. Now, again, you just need to work for 20 hours a week. So obviously, if you're not making $54,000, that's fine. But then again, the annualized salary should be same. Like say, if you're making half that and you're working 20 hours a week, that should be fine. But if you're working for 38 or 40 hours a week and you're doing for 54 or less than 54, that's a problem, right? So that's why we have to basically basically use a simple rational logic that this is annualized salary and based on the annual salary of 38 hours per week, right? So that's one thing. The second is you apply directly to the RD office. Now, directly to RD office means that there's a online form you to fill out. You have to, out of the 14 RDAs, basically like Illawarra, Hunter, Central Coast, Central West, you have to choose which is the better suit for you and which RD you want to apply for, and based on that you apply. Okay, so now RD are allowing you to apply directly. That's one way of doing it. The third pathway is that basically you go with the invitation based pathway, meaning if you meet the points, you meet the experience requirement, the NSW government will invite you by themselves. Okay, so nothing to do with RDA, nothing to do with the experience. If you have the experience by living in Sydney, you can be invited. So this is also very good pathway, and this has been very active. There have been 2 to 3 rounds already. So there have been quite a few invites already. The worst part was that some of the invites came like they were duplicated, because the same people got the invite for the 190, then again they got for the 490. So they did waste a lot of seats, unfortunately, but this is one way of doing it. Okay. Now let's move to the occupation list. This is also important for NSW. Now, if you notice, for ICT managers, and this is basically an ICT project manager, that's the main one. So you need to have 90 plus 5, meaning this. So you have to remember these 95 means that your whatever point you see, these include the state points. The state gives you 5 points. So 95 means 90 of your own and 5 from the state. So anyone who has done Australian study, they are 30 years of between 25 to 32 years of age, and they have superior score in English, they have PY and NATI, they can get to 90 points. And if they have experience, then they can even reach 95 points. So 90 PY, NATI, basic stuff, you can get 90 points, which is most students are getting there. So the state points are added on top, that gives you 95 points, and you have 0 experience needed, and you can get the invite. And already we've received some invites for this, so that means it is happening. But the challenge for ICT project manager is that not every occupation is getting it, unfortunately. Like you have to be in a particular, you have to have a particular kind of degree to get it. Like I have clients who have done MIT, MITM, they are getting it. I have some people in, but then again, and ACS is also being a little tricky, because I have had cases when I have 3 class fellows, all my clients, applied for all 3 of them together, like the same day. 2 of them got it, 1 did not get it. Now this is also happening. Now obviously ACS is being a little picky because they're getting so many applications suddenly, so they are also being very cautious. So that also happens. But then again, if you have project management subject, you have that kind of profile, or if you have that kind of experience, you will look very genuine and they will invite you. So they will get you the employment skill assessment basically. So that's one thing. Now, other occupation, if you look at business analyst, you need to get 95 points plus 5 and with 2 years of experience. Not everyone has 2 years of experience, but if you do, then it becomes really simple. So there are cases when if you meet the criteria, you get the invite really quickly. I had a client who got 95 points in ICT support engineer, which is the last occupation in this list. He got the assessment. We launched the EY on 10th of September, just 2 days after the occupation list was announced. 15, he got the invite. Why? Because he met their criteria. So it's a blessing in disguise in a way, meaning previously they just used to tell us the minimum requirement, meaning if they won't tell you at what point will you get invited, they will say at least this much has to be reached and then we'll consider you. So that leaves it open-ended estimation predictions, right? Now at least they're telling you very clearly that this is what we need. If you have this, stay here, we'll get the invite within a month, 2 months, maximum 3 months. But if you don't have it, then you might look elsewhere, right? So at least they're being very straight up. So yes, it's not ideal. Yes, it's not easy. But then again, at least you have a clarity. Rather than wasting 1 year in NSW, it's better to consider other options, right? So that's one thing for you. Now 491 has similar thing, but if you notice, their points have gone up. Like ICT business analyst for 190 has 100 points with 2 years experience. For 491, ICT business analyst is 110 points. So basically, essentially, you need same point, 95 points, right? Why is 110? Because 491, the moment you add the 15 points for the regional visa, that becomes 110. So basically, the same person has 95 points. For 190, they will have 100. For 491, they'll have 110. So essentially the same thing. So So that's what they're trying to do. The only, let's say, like saving races, asset business centers over here needs 2 years, over 491 they need 1 year. So that's one of the differences. So support engineer needs 100, over there 100 against well, but 1 year. So basically, there's not a huge advantage to go for the 491 if you think about it, because the requirements are so similar, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference, unfortunately. So that's why this is kind of illogical, but this is also happening right now. So some people are going with the 491 because they're desperate, they want to just get the nomination and get out of the way. So that's, I think, enough for NSW. Let's move to Victoria. Now, for Victoria, essentially there's 4 steps to follow. You have to lodge expression of interest, you lodge the ROI, which is different from the NSW. You have to lodge ROI, which requires you to show your employment, your profile, your basically salary, all these sort of things. And once they shortlist your ROI, which may take 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, depending on your profile, and then they'll invite you for the nomination. And once your nomination is approved, then you apply for the visa. So this is like a simplified version of what you need to do for Victoria. So the main factors for invitation, what we have noticed for ROI is basically points. Like first 3 are the main ones: the points, the salary, and the skill employment. Now, skill employment does not need to be in your field. You can work in a different field. You could be a network engineer working in completely different field, as long as level 1 to 3 and school list. That's what matters. So points, salary, employment, skill employment. These are 3 things that the primarily look at. The other 3 components are there, but to a less extent. That what's your English score, what's your age, what's your priority, are you in the priority of occupation sector or not, right? They look at those factors. So Victoria has been very active and they have been inviting people. And now the main difference between 190 and 491, the main difference is number 1, the points, and number 2, for 491, you have to be working in a regional area. So that's the only difference. But the good part about all of Victoria is that if you move there, there's no minimum stay requirement. So you don't have to work for 1 year or 3 months or 4 months, nothing like that. The moment you move there, you can lodge the ROI the next day. So that's actually a very big positive. And because of that, a lot of people have got invited. I have clients who have moved on 18th or 19th of August, and they already got into nomination by early September. So they're inviting above 1,000 people a month. So they have been very active and they have enough seats available for the whole migration year, pretty much, like till the end of June, like till May, they have enough seats available. So they can keep up this pace for the next couple of months, and they would have covered most of the applicants. So a lot of people are moving to Victoria who have enough points, but they don't have enough experience. So they're not going by NSW, they're moving to Victoria because of that. And the graduates of Victoria are already there taking the advantage. They have a huge advantage if they just know how to do the ROI properly, nomination properly. Nothing else stop them, right? So this is actually a very, very good pathway. And if someone is lucky, they have a really good salary. They might not be working in the field, they might not have enough point, you might be 5 point or 10 point lower than other applicants, but if you have a good salary, you can get invited. I've had client who was 80 points while 90 pointers were not invited. 80 pointer got invited just because he had like a crazy amount of salary. We are talking about like 1/3. Basically, for a 26-year-old, that's an excellent salary, right? So those kind of things do happen. Now let's talk about South Australia. Now South Australia is very interesting because generally South Australia is one of the best states for PR across the board, which you go for. But for IT, it's not the best, unfortunately, because what they've done is there are 5 pathways. If you're a graduate in South Australia, if you already studied there, let's say master's or bachelor or something, then yes, then it's very good. Then you just have to work for 3 months or 6 months, depending on the occupation, and you can get the PR. Now, if you're not a graduate of South Australia, then you have to work there, meaning you have to move, you have to find employment in your own field. And then other categories, basically, if you're, let's say, for example, like let's say you're a network engineer, you move there. If you're a graduate over there, usually it's 3 months, that's it, or 3 months out, sorry, 6 months, or 3 months outside Adelaide. But if you are a graduate of NSW or Melbourne, and then you move to South Australia, then you'll have to, most 80% of the IT occupation, you'll have to work for 24 months in Adelaide to get the 190 visa, or 6 months to get the 490 visa. So essentially what they're trying to do is they want to make it very clear that we don't want to give you 190 if you're graduated elsewhere. We want to give you the 491. If you want the 190, you should have graduated here. So that's essentially what they're trying to do. So the price differential is very high. Like to pay a price of 24 months of work, that's way too high. So obviously they know that you will settle for the 491, which is obviously once you do meet the 6 months requirement, then it's like that. Easy, 2 months, you'll get the invite and your visa will be launched. It can be as simple as that, but then again, employment is the key part over there. So that puts in a bit of a difficult position, because when you look at Queensland after this, you'll understand why this source trade option for IT does not make a whole lot of sense. Now, there's another pathway, highly skill and talented pathway. You could be in South Australia, you could be interstate, meaning different state Australian cities, or you could be overseas. You can apply for highly skilled and talented pathway. Now, the main point of this whole pathway that they want the right people, they want the right skilled people, talented people for this. So essentially what they're saying is, if you are the kind of person who's making $80,000 or above, that means you are valued, and you are having 65 points, and you have basically you work in a priority sector, they have 3 or 4 priority high tech sectors, you can apply for highly skilled pathway, but you have to justify why do you think you deserve this pathway. So there are 2 main ways to show this. One, that you're already making a very high salary in, let's say, other cities, let's say Canberra, Wollongong, wherever you're living. So you can show that. Or you, so basically, I hope the idea is clear that you don't need to move there. You can do it from within Adelaide, outside the country as well. That's why anywhere in the world you can apply for it, basically. So if you're living in Sydney and you're making a $90,000 salary, you can apply for highly skilled pathway, showing that I'm making a high income and I can get a similar kind of job over there and make a competitive income. So that's how you prove it. Now, the other way, and the more like the best way to show the highly skilled pathway, is that you have an offer letter. If you have an offer letter for a company in South Australia, that's all you need to do. And essentially that alone will get you the invite in a matter of literally 2 months, because the moment you show that you already can score a job which is 80,000 above, they will love you, right? That's what the whole purpose of the pathway. They want high income earners. Now there's another pathway, outrage. This is for people who don't have good points. Now these are people who don't have the PT, don't intend to get it, they don't have the NATI, they don't have the experience, they don't have the kind of profile that we've been talking about, like 90 pointers, 95 pointers. So this is for people who are barely making it like 65, 70, 80, that level. So the main idea of the crux of the whole plan is that even if you don't work in IT field, right? Let's say you are a retail manager, you are a chef, or you are accountant for matter, but you have done IT degree for whatever reason. You can go to basically South Australia, do 6 months of work in outer region, meaning outside Greater Adelaide. You work for 6 months, as long as your salary is above $65,000, and you can work in any field at all. Doesn't matter what it is, and as long as you have a letter of support from your boss that yes, we want this person, you can get invited. So this is a very interesting pathway. I've used this for accountants, for IT, for chefs, you name it. Like for anyone who can score a job outside Adelaide but within South Australia, we can go the outer region pathway. So there's actually a very interesting pathway, but it depends like how bad your case is. If your case is really bad and you don't have hope elsewhere, then this is the way to go. But there are obvious risk involved, meaning they might not invite you because they have so many applicants in the next 6 months, 7 months. But the good part is overall the migration has been positive, so there are not too many people jumping for this option. So you can still go for it. Now the fifth option and the final option, the offshore for South Australia. Offshore means that mostly for IT, you can only get the 190 for 491, not the 190. But essentially, you have to justify that you have the right points, you have the right age, you have the right experience, you have the family, you have everything sorted out, and then you may get the offshore, because offshore is there. The good thing is South Australia is trying to promote it, because they recently, like I think 2 weeks back or something, they actually even emailed that they increased their seats by 1100 just for the offshore. So they're trying to promote that, but then again, offshore is there, but then again, you have to be outside the country permanently to show that you're living offshore. So anyone of you, I don't know, most of you should be in Australia, but if anyone is overseas, let's say Philippines, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Mongolia, Jordan, wherever, as long as you have the right kind of experience and you have a couple of years, let's say 3-4 years of experience in IT, or you have a good job, you can show that you're a good profile, you have 85, 90 points, like obviously not 90 points, but at least 75, 80, the decent points, you can apply for it. Now, the problem with the offshore pathway is that it's not a solid pathway. It may work, may not work. But again, is if you because there's not easy numbers readily available, so it's very hard to figure out like, is it worth it for you or not. But then again, it is there. Okay, So now let's move to Western Australia. Western Australia is very simple. That's the best part. So I've kept it as simple as possible. So Western Australia, essentially, there are two things, 190 and 499. For 190, you need to have the right points and you have to have an offer letter. Meaning, if you apply the EY for Western Australia, they will shortlist you out of all the applicants. Okay. Now, what they do is they say, okay, you've been shortlisted. We'll give you 28 days. Find an offer letter. If you find an offer letter in your own field for a Western Australian employer, in your own field, as if you're a network engineer, if you're an accountant, accounting job, particular job, based on that, you can get invited. But once you have the offer letter, you're pretty much guaranteed an invite, pretty much. And the good part about this pathway is that you don't need to be in Western Australia. You could be in Sydney, Melbourne, wherever you want. You can still apply for it. So Western Australia is a very easy option on the paper. But then again, if you practically look at it, it's not very simple, because unless you have very good connections, you have very good networking, you have very good people who owe you a lot of things, favors, then it's very hard, because getting an offer letter in a 28 days period is tough. And I know for a fact that I have a lot of IT graduates who are my clients. So I can tell you that it's not easy for the best applicant. Like, even if the employer wants you, they won't rush through the whole interview process or the technical interview within a month. It's sometimes not practical, right? So that's one thing. It's easy for people who already have a branch in Western Australia. Let's say you have a company who is you're working for Sydney, you have a branch in Western Australia, but you know, apply there. For them, it's fine. But then the rest of us, it is going to be tough, right? But it's good. Now the 491 usually points. And if you're just residing in Western Australia, Perth or nearby, it gives you an edge, basically. So the points is all you need in Western Australia. And the good thing is, if you're living there, it becomes easier for you. You might even with 5 or 10 points less. If you're outside Western Australia, living in, let's say, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, the points will be slightly higher. But then again, obviously, at least they'll consider you. If you have a decent profile, you can still stay in here and apply for there. There is a possibility. So that's why if you ask a friend, you ask any WhatsApp group for your friends, you notice 70 to 80% of people would have applied for Western Australia already. So that also creates a problem, because its advantage is also its disadvantage, because it's so easy that everyone has applied for it. So even the people who have no intention of going for it, they're applying for it. So that's why Western Australia is something you can go for. But again, it should be a backup option. If it's your main option, then move there. Then don't worry. Then just move and then just get it done. But if you have a very high point, you have 95 points or something, and you want to go to Western Australia, then move. If you can't move, then apply for it, see what happens. Okay. Now, Queensland. Now, this is interesting. Queensland gives you 190 with essentially 6 months of work in your own field, anywhere in Queensland, and you have to work for 35 hours a week. For 491, you have to work. Oh, sorry, there's a mistake. It should be 3 months. My apologies. So 491 should have been 3 months. I think I wrote it. So sorry about that. So it's 3 months. So for 491, you have to work for 3 months at 20 hours a week, and it could be anywhere in Queensland except for Brisbane area. So apologies for that. The 491 is actually 3 months and 20 hours a week. Okay, so not 35 hours a week. So just to keep you. Just to correct it. So essentially, if you think about it, some people want to go to South Australia, other states, but if you think about it, if you can get PR 190 with 6 months of work in Queensland, in Brisbane, while living in Brisbane or Gold Coast, then why would you go to South Australia, right? So you have a good state, you have a good opportunity over there, go for it. The only problem in Queensland is because a lot of people are kind of distraught with it, a little disappointed with it, because last year and the last year, they were a little tough. They opened for 1 or 2, 3 times a year, and then they give very short time to invite, to apply for the invite. So they were a little tough. So that's why people got a little bad experience with them. But recently, they are in a full mood to invite. So I think this is worth considering. But you should be, if you have a job available, if you have an option to get a transfer to Queensland, it's actually a worthwhile option, because even now, a lot of people are still not looking at Queensland. They're still going to South Australia, they're going to Victoria, they're going to Western Australia. They're not considering Queensland. So based on that, it's the same logic. Like, wherever the herd is going, go in a different direction. Because if everyone's doing one thing, let's say everyone's applying for Western Australia, so the vacuum, even if there's a vacuum, it will fill up really quickly. So you're left with very little opportunity. So go with something which is different, and that is your solution, right? Now, interesting part. If you don't meet any of this criteria, or you think you cannot meet the criteria or whatever, like reason, then you are in a bit of a trouble. And if you're an IT graduate and you think none of these states seems easy to you, or you can't meet their criteria, you don't want to meet their criteria, in that case, you're in a bit of a trouble, meaning you have to then rely on one or three things. Either you get married to someone who's an Australian citizen, or you apply for a business visa if you're very rich, or you change occupation. So you study something different. You study for like a diploma or something like that based on your situation, of course. But then you have options like community service, nursing, civil construction design, telecom, early childhood teaching. So you do different kind of options available. But you'll have to do those options if you can't meet one of these criteria, because fooling yourself is not going to take you anywhere. So ultimately, you have to figure out like what's most logical for you, right? So that's something you have to figure out. And obviously, we are there for you. If you need any migration advice, I'm there. If you need an education advice, Hira is there. So Hira, I think you're available now. So if you could just guide everyone about the study options, so we can then take the questions.
Yes, sure, Usman, no worries. Hello, everyone. I'll be discussing states and estimated costs related to IT. So basically, it all depends upon the level of education you're choosing for yourself, whether it's a wet level, whether it's higher education, bachelor's or master's. And in some cases, like, students might be choosing a bridging program, like a graduate diploma or certificate leading to master's. So the cost all depends upon the level of education you're choosing for yourself, both for onshore and offshore. So I'll start with the NSW first. So talking about bachelor's of IT, the estimated cost is something between $12,000 to $40,000, $42,000 each year. And the duration of the course is 3 years, both in metro and regional areas. Coming to the master's of IT is somewhat starting from $18,000 towards $35,000 per year. That is also a 2 years program, both for metro and regional areas. So discussing further about NSW, so as you know, like it's the state has a lot of options, like the availability of colleges, availability of the universities, both for wet level and higher education courses is vast as compared to other states. So you will be finding education providers of level 1 as well as other education providers. And the amount of scholarship options are also vast as compared to other states, like people coming from offshore also, and people who are already onshore, like being an international student also, they can qualify for the scholarships. So depending upon your personal choice, like we have the providers who are like level 1 top providers, and we also have affordable providers which can, offer the same level of the course at a very affordable cost for the students. Moving on to ACT, this state also has both of the options available, bachelor's and master's. So the fees is a little bit different as compared to NSW. We all should keep in mind, like whenever, when discussing about like the states, all the states have their different individuality, like depending upon the education providers, the options they have is a little bit different. And same is for the cost also. Whenever you move like away from the main metro areas or the main busy states, the cost will be different as compared to the main states. So bachelor's over here in ICT, in ACT is $20,000 to $35,000 each year, and the duration is same as the NSW, it's 3 years. And Masters of IT is a 2 years program, and the cost is a little bit higher, which is like in between $25,000 to $40,000, depending upon the provider you're choosing. Now, talking about Victoria is also one of the main states offering these courses, both bachelor's, master's, and wet level. But the challenging part over here is the number of education providers available in this state would not be as much as it would be available in NSW. And I would like to say the same for ACT also. Like when you talk about these states, you can't have a vast variety of options available. So the number of education providers available over there and have limited scholarships also. And then the availability of the intakes and everything will be depending upon that. So the fees also in Victoria is somewhat similar to NSW. For Bachelor's of IT, it's like starting from $20,000 to $35,000 in each year. And the program duration also is 3 years. And Masters of IT is $25,000, going towards $45,000 each year, depending upon the education provider you choose, whether it's a top one or level 1 university or college. or some other accredited institutes. And the duration is also 2 years. Now, talking about Western Australia is also a good option, depending upon the candidates who prefer to go to a regional state as compared to studying in NSW or Victoria. This state also has both the courses available, bachelor's, master's, and even like wet level courses are also available. So the fees is slightly, higher than if I compare to main NSW state, it would be higher, and the options available for education providers would be very limited. So usually what happens is like people are expecting to move to regional state for studying and everything. Those people, they need to rush up a little bit because availability of the seats, availability of the intakes, and there's a certain kind of a quota available for admission. That needs to be met early on if you're planning to move to another state. That cannot happen as same as NSW. If a student is onshore and planning to switch a education provider, it can happen few days. That's not the case when you're planning to move to regional area. So bachelor's of IT, the cost starts from $20,000 to $35,000 each year, and the duration is also same, 3 years. Master's of IT is starting from $25,000 to $45,000 each year, and the duration is 2 years. There are also bridging programs available for students, who usually do not have an IT background, but some point of time living in Australia, they decide, okay, now we want to go ahead studying in IT, or they have a professional experience back in the country, but the course they chose to come to Australia is not related to IT. So like it's available for both the students who have a background and who don't have a background. So there are bridging courses available also, which is like graduate program and graduate certificate leading to masters. Usually that's very beneficial for the non-cognate students. If they want to go directly into a higher education course of masters, they can, get a bridging program so that they kind of have a basic base towards IT, and then, they can move to the core programming and IT courses. And lastly, I'll talk about Gold Coast. Gold Coast also have higher education option available, bachelor's and master's. The fees is starting similarly, starting from 20K per year, ending towards 45K per year. Bachelor's it's 3 years and master's is 2 years. So that is the basic idea, generic idea, state-wise, and the estimated cost. Again, I'm repeating the same thing. These cost estimates will change depending upon the provider you choose, the state you choose, and also, it depends upon your personal case scenario, like what program would be suitable, whether you can qualify for a bachelor's or master's directly, or would you be needing a bridging course, that would be something additional course. So I think that's about it for this states and estimated cost. We'll move on further, I think
let's move on towards the questions, because obviously we have to make sure we don't go overboard with time. So let's try to take in some questions. So I've seen some questions, so I'll just answer those first, and then we'll take the rest of them later. Okay. So first of all, guys, just to give you an idea, like we have a branch in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and we have one more branch coming up in Melbourne again. So basically in Melbourne, we have 2 branches. Third is coming up soon. In Philippines, we have branches and different cities. The main one is in Manila, and we have a branch in India as well. Okay. So obviously, if you need any assistance, we are always there. We also have a branch coming up in Pakistan and Bangladesh. So if you have any situation, basically, if you want to consult for Pakistan, Bangladesh, any other country, student visa, anything, we are there to help you. Now, let me just take some questions from the messages so that I can make sure we cover most of them. So Ram Prasad asked that what is requirement for sponsorship visa with IT job. So Ram, so sponsorship is essentially the same. It doesn't differ based on the IT or accounting or something. Essentially for 482 visa, which is PR, you will need to have 2 years of full-time experience. Okay, 35 hours or 38 hours per week. For 2 years, it could be in Australia, outside Australia, doesn't matter. You have to have the right qualification and 2 years experience to get the 482 and the sponsor of, obviously. Now for 186, which is a PR, you have 2 ways to go with it. Either you go with the TRT pathway, temporary in transition, meaning you get the 482 visa first, and after 3 years on being on that 482 visa, you can apply for the 186 TRT pathway. in which you don't need a skill assessment, you just apply that directly through the company. But then again, it takes 3 years on the 482. So you have to have 2 years, then get the 482, then again 3 years, then get a visa. It's a very long pathway. So what people do is they go with the 186 direct entry pathway, meaning as long as you have 3 years of experience in IT, 38 hours per week full time, and you have a skill assessment, you can directly go for the PR, which is 186 direct entry. So that's like the easier way to do it. But if you don't have 3 years already, you can go for the 482 first and then jump on the 186 direct entry once you have completed the 3rd year as well. So that's one thing. Now, Drupam is asking if you have done Master of Software Engineering but doing job as IT support engineer or IT as services analyst with 2 positive assessment, develop program IT, will it be accepted for getting PR? Rupam, that's not sufficient information, unfortunately, because you do have 2 assessment. I get it, but then again, it all depends on the points and on where you're working, where you study, where did you graduate, or where are you located right now. So if you're there, please let me know. I can assist you quickly. But in a simple thumb of rule, if you're doing an IT support engineer role or service desk analyst job, those jobs are kind of considered more towards the technician level, or more towards like ICT support engineer. That's like the actual occupation for those things. So software engineering is not a problem. Network, so basically a network engineer or a software engineer could be working at ICT support engineer role, basically both of them. So essentially it depends on your basically overall profile to let me so I can assist you with basically acceptable for getting PR or not. But if you answer simply for the employment part, then it has to be basically if you're software engineering, but if you're doing software support, DevOps, stuff like that, we can still try to make it happen, right? So that's the simple answer based on the information I have available. I know it's not too helpful, but the question is very mixed. So Ranjan is asking, and use on code visa. Well, code visa is great right now. Like you're getting visa within a week, 2 weeks, sometimes I even have some clients who got the visa within 1 day, like hardly a day. Basically, launched at the night, morning we already got the visa. So 408 code visa is getting granted left, right, and center. So it's a good time. Take advantage of it. It's good, but obviously we have to be mindful because they're being so good suddenly that we have to be a little cautious as well. Like, will this continue, or how long will it continue? Because COVID is already gone, and labor shortage is there. But if the labor shortage is gone in the next 6 months or 4 months or 5, depending on the situation, they might put an end to the COVID visa. But then again, right now, most of my clients, anyone who applied for the last 1 month or 1.5 months, they already getting the visas already, and they're getting for 1 year. So it's pretty good. Like this is actually a good time to apply for a COVID visa. Now going with Dubara Ivelike, so what about ACT? Well, ACT is, as I said earlier, it is tough, and it's basically it's in a position that if you want to go with ACT, you have to compromise for the 491, not the 190, and you'll have to live there for 1 year, do the PY there, do everything. You might have to even work there, because a normal person will reach only 75 points if they don't have a partner. If they have a partner who has good English and is a degree, they get to 85 points. But invites are coming at 90, 95 points. So obviously, and there's a limit as well. Like for example, I see the business analyst has a 20 invites per month limit. So obviously, when you go with those kind of requirements, we are talking about very tough criteria. Like if like there's a ceiling. So if there's a ceiling and there's only 10 or 20 invites per month for your occupation, then obviously you're in a very tough spot, because if your friend is above you in terms of points, they'll get the invite, you won't get it. So that's why it has become tough. When I say tough, it doesn't mean our clients are not getting the invited. They are getting invited, but then again, the percentage has dropped. Like it's not like everyone's successful, but some are obviously successful. There are clients who have done everything. They have 95 points or 105 points camera matrix, but then again, there are reasons for that. They have their wife was working the right field, they were working the right field, they had business as well side on the side. So there's so many things going on. So we can't, just because we got like few invites, you cannot compare that based on that everyone will get the invite. So most people, even above average applicant will find it really tough in Canberra. So not a very good option. So with Mehul, he's saying things valuable insight. I have completed BBIS and right now working as system analyst for 1.5 in NSW, and I received positive ACS 1.85 and 418 and 80. Okay, so Mihal, to be honest, for you, you will have 2 experience, but you will not have the points because you know the points were like 95. So it's going to be tough for you in NSW. You'll have the experience, but not the point. Now, if the points get relaxed in the next 6 months or 1 year, then fine. But then again, time is very valuable. You know, you did not mention your visa, but uh, I think if I'm assuming you're on a 485 visa, obviously, and you have a couple of months left, 1 year left or something, then I would recommend then you should consider the state. Now, with other state, we are talking about one of the best state for you would be a person like you, especially your profile. I think Victoria will be pretty good for you. Victoria or Queensland. Those are the 2 best states for you because Queensland will not really care about the points as long as you find a job over there, 6 months job on the 485 full-time work. You do that, you're pretty much through. If you go to Victoria, you have it not depend, that will depend because you have points, but not too high. Your 85 points is workable, it's possible, but and you have experience as well, so that's going to be taken as positive. The challenge would be getting a job in a high salary occupation. So if you find a job in Victoria, which is salary wise pretty good, that's going to work Victoria. Otherwise, Victoria is going to be tough for you because they want points, skill job, and they want the right salary. If you don't have the right point, let's say you're short of 5 or 10 points, but you don't have a good job, you don't have a high salary, then it gets tough. So Victoria, so for you, I think Queensland seems like the best option. But on the side, you can apply for the 491 in South Australia, highly skilled pathway. If you're making 80 or above, most business analysts are making that kind of salary. You can try on renegotiated salary, or you can go to Western Australia and go with the 491 and 190, both. You can try both of them. Okay, so that's technically the best pathway for you. Now, if you go with Parth Patel, he's saying I'm a developer programmer with 1 year, 3 months experience, living and working in NW, 20.95 plus 5, 2 year experience to complete. Okay, then I'll be okay, fine. Yeah. Okay, so that's so you're in a very, you have a very good profile, Parth. You have good points, everything. You're 95 points of your own. Now, what you can do on the one side is that you can try to get assessment as a ICT project manager, because you have enough points that if you get an assessment as ICT project manager, you can get invited in the next 2-3 months. So that's first thing you should try, because it doesn't cost too much. It doesn't affect you negatively. You can just try. It's just $500 for the ACS. If it comes through, you're through, right? Now, regarding waiting or moving, now obviously it depends on how attached you are and how much time you have. Like, for example, if you have, let's say you are it's not, there's no exact formula, but let's say you have 1 year left. Okay, you have 1 year left and you know you'll be meeting the criteria before 1 year time, and you will have even 4 or 5 months of clearance till your expiry date for the 4-5. Then yeah, you can stay in NSW and make it happen. Or let's say you have a girlfriend here, you have a boyfriend, whatever, and you have someone here then who's holding you on to NSW, then yeah, you can stay here. But then again, if you're nothing like that, you're not attached to NSW, you don't really care about living in Sydney or Melbourne, or you're okay with the Melbourne's weather, you can go. And if you go there, essentially what you need is the right job, and you're through, because your points are solid. Literally, your points are very solid. And right now, from my clients, I can see that there's a lot of good jobs being given to the students. So like, not students, I mean like people on 4-5. So if you're a software engineer developer program kind of role, and you're moving to Victoria, you can shorten this whole pathway for PR rather than waiting till August and then get, because remember one thing, in August and 1st of July onwards, the rules will probably change, maybe easier, maybe harder, but it will probably they will do something. So we don't want to be again, put ourselves in a spot. So it's better to just go to Victoria right now and get the PR and get it sorted. Because if you can, and once you get the PR, you're done. That's the best way to do it, because sometimes it's better to move now than later, because sometimes if you're not too attached to NSW and you have an option available, just take it. But if you don't get a good offer, that's a different option, right? If you have an option, let's say 80 or $85,000 salary, you have good experience, bro. So in my opinion, you should, if I was you, knowing all I know, I would probably start looking for LinkedIn, open all the messages on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure you'll be getting messages. If you don't have LinkedIn, you're missing out. Go for it. Try to find a job, move Victoria. Simple, right? Now, Rupam, you're saying is there no further stay condition on 408? Well, right now they're not giving any no further stay condition. So hopefully not for the short term, but in the long term, eventually, yes, they may give a no further stay condition. But it's the problem is, the visa is too good to be true right now, so that's why everyone's going for it. Like, if you're getting 1 year visa, just having any kind of job, so obviously people will go with the 408. But for now, no further restrictions coming in, at least for my clients. Okay. For Viren, he's saying that for 491 regional and Zibu currently working the United field is part-time work with 80 monthly hours of however much daily charge of time. Yeah, you can, like, if you're currently regional review. Okay, so now it depends. So within the what you meet, the criteria you meet is for the first pathway, meaning you have to go to regional area, work there for 1 year before getting the PR. Because the other two pathways, meaning the one in which you have invited for the NSW government or you apply to the RDA, in those pathways you need to have 2 years or 3 years experience. If you want to skip all of that, you just want to get the PR directly based on your 1 year experience, and you work in regional area for 1 year, which is not easy. You have to move. So if you're already in the regional area, bravo, go for it. 100%. We can help you with this. If 20 hours a week is okay, salary is also fine. But if you're not in regional area already, then you have to reconsider, because that means you have to move to regional area now, work for 1 year, and then get the PR, which is like hard, right? So Mehul, Mehul, I just saw your message and I can't go back to the question again. So yeah, I think I should have answered by now for you. Ajay is saying recently graduated master of ERP system, working in technical business analyst from 5 months, have a good executive salary, haven't started PY yet, but willing to option I can choose. Well, Ajay, you did not mention your state, like which state were
I'm
you
in NSW.
Sorry?
NSW, Sydney.
Okay, so if perfect. So if you're in NSW, then living in Sydney is of no use to you, to be very frank with you. If you just graduated now and you have a good salary signature, which is impressive, then I would recommend you try to find a job, because right now there's kind of like a gold rush in Victoria, if you think about it, because if anyone with 6-digit salary is getting an invite right now. So you should definitely try. If your company has an office over there, a branch over there, try to move yourself over there. And the good part is there's no minimum state requirement, because people keep forgetting that, yeah, the experience requirement, those things are there, but there's no minimum state requirement like NSW, other states will require you to work for 6 months, 3 months, or something like that. Victoria is asking nothing. They're saying just move, apply the next week, next day, we're okay with you. So for you, especially, moving will make more sense, but points is also important. Like PY you should do, because just because you have a job does not mean that you can do PY.
So you would recommend that finishing my PY, NATI, and PTE, get those required points, and then move to Victoria and straight away apply for the PR.
Correct. So you can do all of that here and then move there. That's also an option, but it's better just move there right away and set your life over there. Up to
so in case if the office is actually based in Sydney, but they allow us to work from Melbourne, there is no physical office in the Melbourne.
No, bro, but then, but you do understand, like every IT person right now is getting work from home.
Yeah.
Right. So then every IT person can just use their company, move to Victoria, and that they won't accept it. They want, because they actually ask your address. They actually ask your address. They ask for your point of contact, the manager, the like who's in Victoria. So it is because obviously, like, because obviously they're not stupid, right? They know that obviously every IT person can work from home. So then then why doesn't everyone move there? So that's the problem. So that's why you have to find a job in Victoria.
Okay, which has physical office in Victoria?
Not principal office, a branch. Like branch.
Okay,
like
a branch.
For example, like we have a branch over there, so we are associated. You like, so if you work for APG Melbourne, that's fine. Doesn't matter. Yeah, of course. That's fine.
Okay.
So yeah,
thank you so much.
So I think for you that's a good thing, but do start the PY, and we have one of the best rates for PY. Do contact us.
No, I've got my 485 bridging visa, everything from you, so I'll definitely get back to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Not a problem at all. Okay, so yeah, that's good. So we always, obviously, the thing is, I'm just kidding, but the main thing is we are always trying to work for our client, get a better deal with all the institutes, so we can offer you better cashback and make sure that we get the maximum. Okay, so that's the goal with it, right? So it's always there. So anyways, that's perfect. So I'll move to the next question now. Okay, I've a couple. I'll just take 1 or 2 more, and then we'll have to close it, because I have to lodge a lot of visas today. Okay, so someone named, I think, Shayan Arif. Oh, Shayan Arif is saying that I'm going to be graduating in July next year, which will be added for me to get PR in 2025. Okay, so 2025 is like 3 years away, bro. So Shayan, no one can guide you for 3 years in the future, but generally the usual suspects, NSW, Victoria, Western Australia, you should be fine. You wouldn't need to worry about, because right now NSW is very tough, but eventually it will become easier. So because there's a whole vacuum being created because everyone moving out. So in the next 2 years, they'll start to attract people back into NSW. So that's the answer. But obviously there's no particular way we can find out what's the best for 2025. But obviously NSW Victoria, you can't really go wrong with that. Okay. Now iPhone, okay, someone named iPhone says that, hi, I just finished my graduation, live in Sydney, where should I move? Very good question, iPhone. I have no idea what you've done, what you studied, what's your specialization, what's your expiry date. So, okay, the simple answer is, if you've just studied, and I'm assuming you're an IT graduate, then if you have a good salary or offer, go to Victoria. If you have a solid job and you have 80 points possibility, go to Queensland. If you have none of those and you just want to put a Hail Mary, then just go apply for Western Australia, living wherever you are, or you move to South Australia and get a job over there. So that's like the simple answer for, because this is a very vague question, right? Sorry about that. So Mac is saying, I have the master's degree in 20 PY and don't have an IT job. What are the, okay. So that's a tricky part, because if you have done master's PY, but you don't have an IT job, then you are kind of locked out of NSW, Western Australia 190, South Australia and Queensland. So you technically only go for Victoria, or you can go with a regional area. So Victoria, but then again, without the right job, Victoria is also going to be tough for you, because your points are going to be short as compared to other people, right? So we have to figure, like, one of the options is South Australia, outer regional. But if we know the points, we can guide you better, like how many points are you reaching. If you're reaching the right points, you can just go to NSW, sorry, Adelaide, and live there and get the PR, right? That's simpler way to do it. Now, I'll just try to, because I have to keep it simple. I'll just take, I think, one more question just to make. Atinder Pal Singh, the last question. Let's take that one, then we'll try to close this one. All right. So he's saying, I'm pursuing master's in computer science in Wollongong, and right now in second semester. I must move to university or continue in NSW. Well, interesting question. So you're doing Master of Computer Science in Wollongong. Well, I would recommend you move. Okay, again, nothing against Wollongong. I'm a graduate of Wollongong myself, but I'm telling you, like, it's better to move, because the advantage of studying in regional areas that you get 5 points, those things are there. But then again, you will graduate in 1 year's time. NSW will probably be much easier in 1 year's time. So yeah, you can take that risk, or you can just go to another state, like that, like any state which has offered the graduate pathway, meaning for the PR. NSW does offer a graduate pathway, but for the 490, not the 190, right? So that's a difference. So if you want some state of the graduate pathway, it will make your life very easy to get the 190. After that, it's like with 3 months experience or something like that, which is like Western Australia, South Australia. They give you a graduate pathway. So those states are better for people who are studying. So that's, yeah, I think that you can get same course in third semester. Contact us. Miss Hira will guide you with the right course. Don't worry about it. So basically, you've done already 6 months, so you can change the course. That's enough to probably go take the same exemptions. And so I'll give you an example. Okay, just to explain it properly. For South Australia, to go with the graduate pathway, the simple definition is you have to study in either 50% of your course or 1 year. If your course is only 1 year, then you study 1 year. But since you're doing masters, obviously we know it's for 2 years. If you've done 1 year in South Australia, the third and fourth semester, you're through. That's it. Then you become a graduate of South Australia, and that makes your life much easier. But then you can just need 3 months or 6 months of work, and voila, you get the invite with 65 points. So that could be as simple as that. So for people, so for the graduates, I always tell to go to Victoria, the state. But if you're studying, then obviously you are achieving the perfect spot. But if you delay it, then you'll be in a other boat. Then you'll have to go to Victoria. Then the competition is higher in those states. So so if you can share your email address, we can contact you as well. So the main thing is, South Australia will be the perfect fit for you in that regard, because it gives you a graduate pathway, even Western Australia. So you choose basically Perth or South Australia. But Perth has the problem that they would expect you to study a little more for probably 2 years. South Australia explicitly tells you 1 year or 50% of the course, we are happy with you. And they give you regional points, and they give you extra 485 visa. Was not to love, right? So go for that. So that's one thing. So yeah, so Mr. Can you just note down the email address, so you just contact him later and guide him what the change of course and everything. And obviously, if you change through us, we offer a discounted rate for every college, so we can tell you the best possible cost in terms of the course. Good or the bad university, up to you. Now, like, you go with what you want to do. Okay, so that's it, guys. So thank you all for coming. It was a pleasure. I hope I was clear most of the way. I talk too fast, so sorry about that, but that's how I do it. Any other question, you're most welcome to contact us. We're happy to take applications for admission or PR, whatever. Just contact us to the main office, call us. We have branches everywhere. We're there to serve you, right? So essentially, that's what you need to do. So thank you so much, and we'll be doing more webinars from now on for more specific subjects. So, and we'll do this question answer sessions more often. So okay. So yeah, perfect. So thank you so much, guys. Take care.
Thank you so much, Usman. Thank you everyone.